There was one time I knew something was going on with, I'll say termites. I have to be careful what I say because I'm not licensed to identify termites. However, I know enough. I just have not taken the test to do so. So there was something about this one crawl space, no access points. Finally, I just caught when I'm doing the basement, I caught a glint of glass, a little bit of a reflection in my flashlight. Back behind the box, there was that crawl space window. That window had the mud shelter tubes all around it.
Real quick, mud shelter tubes. Tell me more about that.
Mud shelter tubes. So if you follow termites, and you can easily go and look online, predominantly in the St. Louis region, we have what's called subterranean termites. That means they need the earth and the moisture. So the shelter tubes are how they travel to their food sources from their nest below ground. So in that case, the termite guy had not seen that. So I point blank told my agent, my buyer's agent, said, this is an issue and you need to get that guy back out here.
Welcome to Keys to Your First Rental, the private podcast designed exclusively for soon-to-be real estate investors. If you've dreamt of owning rental properties, you're in the right place. Join Gabby as she sits down with investor clients who share how the Real Estate Bay Agency has taken them from confused to closed. From finding the perfect location, to analyzing rental markets, to securing financing and placing tenants. We equip clients with tools and strategies to make their real estate dreams a reality. Here are their stories.
All right. So welcome to Keys to Your First Rental. I'm your guest host, Brandon Alexander Williams, reporting live from the headquarters of Williams Clayton Realty right here in St. Louis, Missouri. We're sitting here with a legend, a living legend, 2014 president of the St. Louis chapter of ASHI, instructor of the ASHI school, instructor, ladies and gentlemen, instructor, right? CLR representative, ASHI National Board of Directors 2016 to 2018, ASHI Education Board and Membership Committee Liaison, alternate speaker for the ASHI Council of Representatives of 2015. Since founding Wesley Home Inspection Services, LLC, John has inspected and evaluated over 4,000 buildings. And it's probably more than that because whenever they wrote this bio, I'm sure he was a little bit over 4,000, but now he's at 10. He also performs home safety and maintenance inspections for seniors and disabled individuals. His 10 plus year background in the garage door entry and window related construction field enhance his inspection skills. John is active with ASHI Education in the St. Louis chapter and has presented such topics as stairway rails and guard issues and the mechanics of garage door systems and safety practices for a home inspector, ASHI certified inspector, NEHA Healthy Home Specialist certified representative, AARST, NRPP certified, NADRA certified deck inspector, and Missouri Save Coalition disaster inspector. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the podcast, John Wesley. How you doing, John?
I'm doing well, Brandon. Thanks for that. And I know some of those things are a mouthful and there's a lot of acronyms in there.
Yeah.
We could talk about any of those acronyms that you want to. The other thing is, yeah, it is probably pushing closer to 12,000 homes now. And one big honor that I had as an inspector is my peers actually elected me as national president in 2022. So I actually served as national president for my organization.
Man, congratulations. Big congratulations. I see that badge on your shirt there. So what is that? Tell me about the ASHI. What does that stand for? Let the people know, because this podcast is Keys to Your First Rental, but of course we like to introduce contractors, and you're our favorite inspector, our only inspector pretty much. And so tell us about ASHI and what does that stand for and what does it represent?
Sure. ASHI stands for the American Society of Home Inspectors.
Okay.
Founded 50 years ago. It is the oldest national profession that we've had.
Oh, okay.
We stand for education. We're required to get a minimum 20 hours to maintain our certification every year. If you see an ACI certification, that's ASHI Certified Inspector, that is a different process. And that is an individual certification. That's not a company certification. That is an individual inspector certification. Okay. You go through benchmarks where you're peer reviewed on your report writing, quizzed, and are evaluated on the standards of practice and ethics, as well as picked apart by a committee of retired guys on some of your original report writing to make sure that you're doing things accurately and fairly for your clients.
Awesome. Okay, so I was introduced to you a couple years ago. Actually, it might have been 6 or 7 years ago when you inspected our home in Hazelwood. And I remember chatting with you just briefly then, and you were, crawling up in the attic space and everything. So one thing that I'm impressed about, we're just gonna jump right into it. One thing that I'm impressed about more than anything is like your attention to detail, but your diligence. It's like you eat, sleep, and breathe inspecting. You've done it better than anybody I've ever seen in my life, and I just turned 40. All right, so I guess my first question is, let's go back a little. Here's this question, then we're going to go back in time. So the first question is, where does your passion or heart for inspecting home inspections come from? What is it, or what's your belief? If somebody were to ask you, like a new student that you're teaching, like, hey, what's one of your principles when it comes to home inspections that you're just like, I won't move off of this?
I love home buyers.
Mhm.
I love, especially new home buyers, because part of the way I view an inspection is education for that homeowner to be able to take care of their home.
Mhm.
So a lot of where I approach from comes from that. How can I not only point out what this means to your house, but how can you better take care of the house?
Mm.
There is a standard of practice, as I alluded to earlier. That is the base for what I am supposed to do at a minimum for the inspection by being an ASHI certified inspector. There are also a couple of other standards of practices out there. For example, I primarily practice in Missouri. Illinois is a licensed state, so you have to be a licensed home inspector over there.
Okay.
You have to then follow the terms of their licensed standard of practice versus the ASHI standard of practice. They're very similar, and they cover everything in the house. The inspection is really, really accessible and visual for the inspection. I'm not allowed to break a house to do something. There are times I wish I could break open a wall, because in that due diligence and that care to detail, I see something on that wall that I want to know what's going behind it, but I don't get to carry my sledgehammer with me.
Right.
I just have to say, hey, listen, this is what I suspect going on. I also look at it this way. If it were my family, I want to inspect it like it's my daughter buying the house. Now, conflict of interest, I will never inspect the house that my daughter buys officially, because there's that bias there.
Right.
Personally, I love it when people buy homes. I have no skin in that game. My job is to say, here's what your house is. Here's what I see in your house. Here's what's going to be maybe of a concern for you. Here are some things that might need to be repaired before you move in, and inform you on the state and condition of that house at that point in time when I'm inspecting it, so that you as a buyer and your agents can sit down and have an intelligent conversation without an emotion of somebody saying, this is what you have to do. I'm in it for the client. I'm representing the client for what I see and all the education and experience that I've had. So that's where my passion really comes from, is to help treat people in this world with respect and dignity, because they're buying something, and they deserve to know what they're buying. And that's where I come from. Again, that standard sets the base mark. Just to quote real quick, the standard says I'm supposed to inspect a representative number of windows and electric outlets. Most of the time, a representative number can be interpreted as one of each type. Okay, so if I do one of each type, I've technically met the standards of my practice for minimal standards. I personally say anything that I can legitimately get to, anything that's accessible, I go for. Again, I'm not allowed to move furniture. I'm not allowed to break open hatchways, but if a cover's supposed to come off, I am supposed to be able to do that. And tell you what I
Or
see.
if you have permission of the owner or the seller at that time, then you can proceed. But it's not the default practice to do that.
Yeah, default practice is not, and that would have to be express written permission typically to say allow for me to cut open an attic access that had been sealed with caulk. That's either going to be on the seller, or the seller is going to have to give me detailed written permission to actually use my razor knife and carefully cut it open for him.
Nice. Okay. Well, listen. So one of the most impressive things I've ever come across is your inspection reports. And actually, whenever we have new clients, we kind of prepare them during our action hour calls. We're like, listen, we got the best inspector in the world. Not only is he an inspector, he's an inspector instructor. So, ladies and gentlemen, you hear You heard it here first. He's an instructor. So all of the inspectors, most of the inspectors he probably ran into in St. Louis, he probably taught them. All right. So these guys are his sons. All right. So anyhow, but ultimately, when it comes to your reports, like I've shown glimpses of your reports to other people. I'm like, it's color coded. It has arrows in there. He's going to tell you the approximate value. The approximate age of the roof, of the hot water heater, of the estimated life of the condenser unit or the furnace, and all of those things are super duper helpful. And what I love even more is that you stay in your lane. So you'll say, hey, this is where my scope ends. If you want to know more about this electric, hire a license. I recommend to hire a licensed electrical inspector, or I recommend to hire or inquire with a licensed plumber or a licensed roofer to tell more detail. And that's where the line is kind of like solidified, the boundary line of like, hey, I do home inspections, but if you want to know more about plumbing, ask a plumber about this specifically, because I can just give you what I see, but I may not know P-traps as intimately as I know the entire home as a whole. Is that a part of like the ASHI, or is that your own thing where you're like, hey, okay, you might have, tell me about your first couple of inspections where maybe you ran into bumps in the road. And you're like, you know what? I should ask a plumber for this because I'm saying too much and I'm actually not licensed. Where do you get that? I don't ask multiple questions. Where do you get that? Like, all right, this is where my boundary ends. Is that something you defined along the way, or is that something that you were taught in your certification?
That's actually a trick question.
Okay.
From the standpoint of, yes, both somewhat self-defined, but more importantly, it is defined by the standards of our practice. It also is defined on what my experience and education have provided for knowledge of those systems. Now, having said that, repair-wise, you always need to go to a qualified contractor.
Okay.
Qualified contractors, qualified's a big word. Sometimes it means licensed. Some of the areas that I actually inspect, they don't give licenses for some of those professions, and that's why it's a qualified contractor. Okay. So I'm not supposed to repair things, but for example, in the ASHI 1 week school class, if you will, they say 1 week, it's actually about 60 hours, plus they're supposed to come in with about 40 hours of homework ahead of time done. Heating and air conditioning is a day alone.
Wow.
It's like 900 slides that we review in that day.
Wow.
So we look at those details. We're taught the details. It's more along the lines of, the more I know in the background, the better I can give you the evaluation of the surface. So the line is drawn to, I'm visual, readily accessible inspecting. I'm not technically exhaustive. Okay, technically exhaustive is going to be meaning I'm going to bring in all these big fancy creations today. Do I own a thermal camera? Yes. That's a specific inspection. That is not part of a home inspection. That's part of that technically exhaustive. Okay. Do I carry a simple voltmeter? Absolutely. My job is not to put it on and clamp on and tell you that you have 200 amps coming in at this point and you're only drawing 101 volts.
Right.
Okay. My job is to say, functionally, by appearance, it is correct, and my electric in the house is working.
Yeah.
That's the line. It doesn't go beyond that. And sometimes it's hard for me to remember that, because I know, especially at this point in my career, I have so much education behind me, I could do a lot of these things. But I'm there to say, visual, readily accessible, this is what I see in your home, with all that information in the back of my head saying what might be going wrong for what I can see.
What does it tell? It all tells a story.
It tells a story.
And even like, I think I saw one of the electrical parts of your reports before, and it was like, hey, the screws in here are sharp tipped. They need to be flat tipped so that they don't pierce the electrical wires or cords, or that they don't pierce those. And I'm just like, yo, this is beautiful. Like, cause I'm a detailed person. I used to do like be a full-time author and public speaker. So words are my thing. So when I got one of your reports, I'm just like, oh, this is beautiful. And that's why whenever we like text or email, I always kind of like laying it on thick as far as like giving you props for what you do, because it's like, it takes manpower, it takes mind, it takes capacity, and it takes practice, right? And then Then you have practicing inspectors, and you have people who teach, and some people who teach aren't that great at practice. And so since you've had experience with over 12,000 homes, it's like that's priceless. It's like watching Michael Jordan play basketball, and then someone else writes the book on it, and it's like the person who wrote the book, did they really write the book? Because the book is about watching the person do,
Right.
And so let me see. So my next question is, where did it all start? Give me the year when it started, and tell me your first experience or how you got into home inspecting. Did you stumble across it? Did an uncle introduce you to it?
Where did it all start? Probably the most accurate place it started was when I purchased my home.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I planted the seeds.
What year was that?
That was 33 years ago.
33 years. Okay.
At that juncture of my life, I was actually in the garage door business. I say garage doors. It was much more than just garage doors. It was doors, windows. We filled in walls. We cut walls out. It was a full service type company. So that's where I was at that point in time. And we bought my house, and we had at that point, 18-year-old profession, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
based on ASHI turning 50 this year. And I thought, this is interesting. And I could probably do a lot of this stuff. And a lot of people can. But there's also a lot of other education that goes behind it. So that was the first planted seed. Mm-hmm. And then as I'm working with the garage company, I became a little bit more visible and widened my blinders on my eyes and started seeing this going around. It's like, that's kind of cool. I like looking at houses. I like getting involved in things like that. Mm-hmm. Change of events, change of career paths. And I spent a little bit of time in the phone world, believe it or not, while I was getting the education to become a junior inspector. Okay. So that is...
So you're changing some lines on the telephone walls?
I used to.
Okay.
So that was probably about 28 years ago. Mm-hmm. I opened my own company a couple of years after shadowing, moonlight, mentoring with being mentored by other people in the industry. And my company is about 20 years old right now. My personal company. Some of the first original things I remember when I finally actually decided to set my company up was I was with one of my very good mentors at that point. He had also served as a national president. Mm-hmm. And he looked at me and he said, "John, I'm going to kick you in the backside." He said, "Why aren't you doing this on your own?" Mm. And I said, "Because I don't think I know it well enough."
Wow.
Can I remember I prefaced this? This guy's name was Don. He had been national president 2 years before this conversation occurred. Wow. He looked at me point blank and said, "You know more than 90% of the people sitting in those meetings with you. You need to be doing this on your own." So it basically took that proverbial kick in the backside. And at that point in time, I went out, formed my company, and I have not looked back since.
Beautiful. That's a beautiful story. It's great when we have mentors like that can see that in us, but also that can kind of see the future. Sometimes it's like a bird's eye view. Like if he's looking over your shoulder, he's like double checking. He's looking behind your work. Sometimes when I work with John, I may look at some details he's done, and I'll look at the notes, and I'm like, it's a lot going on in there, and my brothers are like that. And my mother and my aunts used to tell me that my father was like that, very cerebral, and that if you paid close enough attention, you can see the minutia of hey, it's a lot extra going. He sees the world differently. He sees something small differently. And then when you get the education behind it, it's just it's like a superpower. It's literally like a superpower that you could look at something and be like, well, based on, it's a wet spot, but it's not dark. So it could have been dried, but if it's dark, it's probably mold there. You probably got to get rid of that. Right. It can't be covered up. So you started your company, and then you just went at it solo. Do you have any assistants? Did you ever have any assistants? And then they didn't reach the Western standard?
Actually, it was more along the lines of they decided it wasn't for them.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
As far as working with me, I do have a part-timer right now. He had hurt his back. He's a professional musician. Okay. Believe it or not, he hurt his back burying his cat. And I know him well. He's a lifelong friend. Mm-hmm. So I was surprised. He's like, "Hey, I was burying my cat." So I believe what happened. His daughter was kind of laughing in the background. Mm-hmm. So in the last year or so, he's been nursing his back to health. Yeah. So
back pain is no joke.
It is not a joke. No,
I had two
no.
compression fractures from falling on the ice last year.
Yeah.
So yes, it's no joke at all.
So his first love, he's a professional musician.
Okay.
He has a full-time job, but he does love homes as well.
Mm-hmm.
So Adam does help out time to time.
Mm-hmm.
I know John and a couple other people have seen him here. I have somebody else who might be coming on board, but his wife got real sick, so he's kind of sitting in that background right now.
Yeah.
So if the right person comes along, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I have a couple of people in the wings. It just depends on how those factors lay.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Okay. So how did you tell me about how you became to be an instructor? And at what point in your juncture between starting your business did you start doing that? Or did somebody elect you to be similar to your mentor, Don?
It's interesting you asked that question because there are multiple people in the St. Louis chapter of ASHI, American Society of Home Inspectors, who had said, hey, you need to be presenting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I started doing that, and believe it or not, Don's name comes up again. Don had been a presenter with a couple of different national schools as well, and was an instructor there. So Don's like, John, you need to come and sit in on a class that I'm instructing and see if you like it.
Mm-hmm.
So Don was the one who brought me in.
Nice.
Don at that point in time was the lead instructor within the St. Louis region. As I got more involved with national leadership, if you will, Don is older than I am, so he kind of was fading to the background, and we switched positions.
Okay.
So I became lead instructor technically, I believe, 12 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm lead instructor for the ASHI school here in St. Louis. I've been instructing for that school probably closer to 17, 18 years now.
Okay.
And then I've also presented a couple different locations throughout the U.S.
Okay. Awesome. Beautiful. So here's my question. I'm trying to dig more into your journey. Can you tell me about maybe like a failure or a knock in the head where you're like, oh man, okay, I'm never going to experience that again. I'll never make that mistake again. Let me set up these new practices. More so like the evolution of like how you inspect or how you do paperwork. What's a big mistake you made maybe early on that you were just like, oh man, okay, this is, I gotta change up my practices.
I'll say the one thing that does kind of come back to mind simply because the state of the building, once I realized what was going on. This was when I was very young inspector. I did a lot of volunteer work with other organizations, going through houses, essentially practicing my craft,
Yes.
but creating work lists for a couple of different organizations that help people in need. And beautiful house up near Fairgrounds Park, 2.5 story, meticulous on the outside. It was a beautiful house on the outside. I go inside, and part of their complaint or their need was to help redo the inside. They had all the materials. They just ran out of power and ran out of capability of completing. One of their big things was, we think we have a kitchen water leak because our kitchen floor is soft.
Hey listener, it's Gabby the Real Estate Bae, and before you go any further with the episode, I want to personally invite you to join us for the Financial Diet. This diet is July 7th through August 5th. Now, it's a 21-day coaching cohort for serious high earners who are tired of wondering, where is all my money going? You have the income, you have the raises, you may even have the credit score, and on paper, you should be ready to invest. Yet when you look at the mindset, the financial habits, and the budgeting, and even the savings account, those things are not aligned with the next season. I heard the Lord say that in order to move into what is promised to you, you must shed what you no longer need. The Financial Diet is for 21 days, and I'm personally inviting you to join us. All you have to do is click on this episode's show notes, and I'll see you in the Financial Diet. Remember, we start July 7th, 2026. See you soon.
One of their big things was, we think we have a kitchen water leak because our kitchen floor is soft. Okay, go in, kind of bounce on the floor. Yeah, it's soft, but so was the dining room. So was the living room. So was in the other room in the back of the house. And this is where that inexperience comes in. So I go up to the second floor. It's soft as well. Kind of flexes a little bit. Now this is late 1800s construction. Those floors don't move. in that beautiful wood.
Yeah.
I finally get down to the basement. I looked at one of the posts and said, okay, I've been in this house 25 minutes too long. Unfortunately, that house was falling from the inside, and it was because of termites.
Oh, man.
4 out of 6 of the 12 by 12 wood posts, if you actually took a ream of paper and held it up by one hand and watch it droop over, that's what the top 12 to 18 inches of those posts looked like. There was no support left.
Oh, my goodness.
And about 85% of the floor joists were visibly gone. Okay, yeah, they had a water leak. Yeah, they were leaking, or they were soft floored in that one spot because of that water in the kitchen. Their problem was the termite stuff. So the lesson I picked up on that was, if I got more than one floor that bounces like that, I need to go to the basement first.
Gotcha. Yeah, the basement is going to tell all because of gravity. And
Yeah,
because
the basement does tell you a lot, but more importantly, when there's that many floors there, what I was missing was there's something significantly affecting this house. And I looked at the whole house before I identified that point. Whereas now it would be, if I walked in and something like that was going on, my first instinct is to go to the basement.
Beautiful. So let me ask you this. Do you have I want to share a story with you really quick. So we had a house that we sold last year. I believe you probably inspected it. It was on Royal. I think it was 10215 or something like that, 10217 Royal. And we have a sewer scope guy that we work with, and he's a plumber, but he specializes in scopes. And so his scope saved us $10,000 because if I'm wet behind the ears and I get a report from an inspector, and the inspector says, hey, there's a crack in the sewer lateral, instead of me double checking, I may say, okay, how much does it cost for it to get fixed? I get a plumber. The plumber says, we got to break open the ground, so on and so forth. And so this guy, because he does scopes, that's his specialization. He said, let me see the video. Like, he looked at the video, he paused it. He said, well, based on the colorization right here, this is actually a calcium buildup, and it's a crack in the calcium, but not the actual cast iron. He said, let me flush it just to double check and scope it again. Lo and behold, he did a hydro flush and he scoped it, and it was calcium. So we didn't have to break open the floor and replace any pipes at all. And so is there an example maybe like that where either you save someone else some money, or maybe you did a double check or a triple check? Like maybe you had a feeling, maybe it was the Lord, the Holy Spirit saying, hey, check that one more time, where you save some money or you save somebody else some money, like an experience like that, where you were like, I trust my mind more than I trust this independent inspector.
There have been times, but to single out one specific example is a little bit difficult.
Okay.
But there are times that the people I usually work with, as far as what I consider my primary team, we all know each other quite well, and we all have each other's backs.
Yeah.
For example, I know enough that I could be doing my own termite inspections. I actually choose to use somebody who specializes in that, even though I know as much as they do.
Yeah.
Because they're only looking at that one focus. Right. But we look at a lot of the same things. So now by doing that, I now have 4 eyes looking at some of those same items that just 2 eyes would be if I did my own termite inspections. There have been times, like on termite inspections, we both want to see inside the wall. And so I have the luxury, and if you will, for the word, of putting that in writing, saying, I suspect something is going on behind that wall, and I recommend further evaluation, including removal of drywall, at least in this location, for further review.
Yeah.
There have been some houses that does pay off, where they actually do come in, that there's an agreement made somewhere in that whole negotiation line. They open it up, and lo and behold, there is damage in there. So from that standpoint, yes, going back and forth, cross-checking things. There have been times where my termite guys, again, I remember I said, where you've got 4 eyes looking at the same thing, say, hey, John, have you seen that?
Okay.
And there are other times that I'll say, hey, pest guy, have you seen this?
Yeah.
So there's times that we call each other's attention more acutely to those issues that we may not have walked past, or may not have walked past, that we may have walked past. So it's kind of a cross check. So to say, here's that one time, There was one time I knew something was going on with, I'll say termites. I have to be careful what I say because I'm not licensed to identify termites. However, I know enough. I just have not taken the test to do so. So there was something about this one crawl space, no access points. Finally, I just caught when I'm doing the basement, I caught a glint of glass, a little bit of a reflection in my flashlight. Back behind a box, there was that crawl space window. That window had the mud shelter tubes all around it. So in that case, it was a different company that I primarily used. The termite guy had not seen that. So I point blank told my agent, my buyer's agent, not my agent, but the buyer's agent said, this is an issue and you need to get that guy back out here.
Real quick, mud shelter tubes. Tell me more about that.
Mud shelter tubes. So if you follow termites, and you can easily go and look online, predominantly in the St. Louis region, we have what's called subterranean termites. That means they need the earth and the moisture. So the shelter tubes are how they travel to their food sources from their nest below ground.
Almost like an anthill for termites.
Almost kind of like, yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
So those shelter tubes are essentially their expressways, their highways, going from their nest above ground to that food source, because termites are very sensitive and will not survive very long in this area with that species of subterranean termite above ground. Yes, they swarm. That's a slightly different form of the animal, or the insect, I should say, not animal. So termites in this area, predominantly, it's going to be a subterranean. They have to have that moisture, and that's what your shelter tube is. It's essentially their spit, there's mud, their excrement, and that's what they built the shelter tube out of. It's called a mud tube because it looks like dried mud. And sometimes it'll look like a damp mud if they're really active. But that's how they get to places.
And so to the untrained eye, I might think, oh, there's just some dirt that I have to clean up.
Yes.
So your trained eye, you're like, that's a different color brown. Like, if you were to eyeball one right now, what's something that you might say just off the cuff? Like, you might say, well, actually, just brown, or is it just the shape of it, maybe? Because your eyes, like I said, your eyes are trained. So
it's so hard to say because I've seen so many different shapes and sizes of shelter tubes. The widest I've seen is actually putting my two thumbs together, and it was about an inch and a half wide on that shelter tube.
Gotcha.
Typically, they're much smaller than that. They are tubes. They run places. It's not like a it's not like a mud dauber or a wasp that builds that little local nest. These run basically. What we're really looking at is you're looking at the exposed woods and you're looking up and down the concrete or the stone, whatever the foundation might be. That's why we always love to look at the foundation and see it.
Nice.
Because they have to travel above ground through those. So if you see tubes coming up from below the ground, there's a lot to identify them with. And I'm not licensed to say they are, but there's a lot of evidence that would be very consistent with it that I would recommend if a person doesn't have a termite person coming. That's when I say you need to get a licensed termite professional out here. So it's the characteristics.
Gotcha. It's like where there's smoke, there's fire.
Yeah.
And you're able to identify them.
Yeah.
So one other thing I noticed about like your attention to detail and how great you are at what you do, it reminds me of an attorney. It reminds me of like how you're careful with language, how you're like, I do this thing, I won't do that thing. I can't give you advice on this. I can only say this. Have you ever been like called into like any type of litigation to like testify or give like a personal inspector's opinion on something?
I have done some expert witness work at this point in time.
Okay.
I know some of the leading expert witnesses that represent both sides of the fence, if you will, for home inspector, not home inspector, but people on the other side in the nation. So I do hang around with them. I have, I guess you could say, both engineering from my dad and the family, as well as a bunch of cousins and aunts and uncles are also attorneys. So I've been exposed to that method of thinking. I think it's probably just kind of like that osmosis, sometimes being around it.
It's in the gene.
It's also being nationally involved. I hear these things. And I know what people have complained about, or I know what people say you need to be aware of, pay particular attention to.
Yeah.
So I listen and observe. In rooms, a lot of time, I will be that quiet person, that fly on the wall, because I love to listen.
Mm.
And it's by listening to, if you will, home inspectors swapping the war stories,
Yeah.
or insurance brokers talking about cases, or how to write agreements, or what words to use, what words not to use. Sometimes it's, if you use this word, it means this if you happen to be unfortunate.
Mm.
So word choices are very important. The other thing is, as a building inspector, my job is not to inflame an item. I don't enhance,
Yeah.
but more importantly, I don't sugarcoat.
Yes.
I'm supposed to say matter of factly, this is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
What does it mean? It means your house might fall down.
Yeah. This is a crack. It's approximately this many millimeters or centimeters. It is here. Here's a picture of it. Here's an arrow.
Yes.
There it is on the joist.
Exactly. And then based on, since you brought cracks up and foundations, there's a lot of cracks in foundations. Is really, and earlier you alluded to puzzle. I use an analogy on puzzles. There's a lot of cracks that I rate as a green puzzle piece.
Okay.
Those cracks, though, tell stories. So if the crack is too big or has certain characteristics, it might go to an orange or even a red puzzle piece.
Yeah.
If it's a red puzzle piece, I'm saying you need to get a structural specialist by itself. The other thing is that puzzle piece sometimes comes together. You see the crack here. Are there other things going around in other parts of the home, or even in that same general area, that could correlate?
Yeah.
And that's where the experience comes in place. Because I'm building a potential puzzle.
Yeah.
And do I have all green pieces fitting together? Or do I have something else that says, yeah, no, I'm an orange or a red? And then it might change that importance of the crack.
Yeah.
Displacement is one of those big things on cracks. Displacements and sizes.
Gotcha. So, like for example, here's what I've learned over my small tenure of being around real estate is, one is nature is going to nature, and they don't care. Nature doesn't care if it's concrete. It doesn't care if it's bedrock. It's gonna find that water. So I've seen a weed that is grown, and it's like a stump on the side of a house, on the side of a piece of concrete, because there's no gutter extender or splash pad or something like that, and it's literally right there on the foundation. And so you may see the vertical crack, or even worse, the horizontal crack, right? Or even see an erosion nearby. Like our house that we live in is right by on the side of I-44. So the vibrations are making the house settle more often than it would have, because we had a foundation specialist come out the other week, and he's like, "This significant." He said, "I could see under your slab. There's significant erosion. That slab was once
that would be
with the ground." My next question, off topic, but still about you. How many siblings do you have, and where do you sit in the ranking?
I am number 2. I have an older sister, and then everyone else is younger. Okay. 3 brothers and 3 sisters.
Okay, gotcha. And okay.
My father was an engineer.
Okay.
My mother was a teacher.
Oh, there it is.
So I think it rubbed off. Yes.
Yeah. Beautiful. What's a good piece of advice that you've heard from either your mother or your father that maybe when they said it, you just like kept it, but you came to use it later on in life?
It's probably always do your best and be fair.
Yeah. That's definitely.
It's kind of short and sweet, but do your best, but be fair.
So let me ask you this, because we definitely believe you have the sauce of like, I feel like in your mind, you're kind of like Kobe Bryant. You're like, or like Michael Jordan. You're like, how can I be better than me yesterday? Like, how can I do this better than that? Am I right? 1, and 2, where do you think that comes? Does it come from the do your best, or you just like, well, I guess I got to figure out whatever the best means?
I think it does come from the desire to be the best, to do my best. But it also comes to desire of the way I look at it is the day I stopped learning better be the day I stopped breathing. There's always something new to experience. There's always something new to learn about. And in this revolving world, especially with AI and everything else going on right now, there's going to be all kinds of interesting things coming up to examine and review and incorporate, if you will.
Yeah.
Same way with homes. There are so many new products coming out for your homes. on new build construction or major rehabs, I have to be able to stay up on top of that.
Yeah.
So it's the constant education, it's constant relearning. You have mentioned several times that I'm an instructor. Yes, I instruct. One of the keys to that I believe is true to me anyway, is I have to know that topic to be able to teach that topic.
Oh, come on now.
And if I can't teach it, then I really don't grasp that topic. The other thing is the students' questions keep me on my toes.
Okay.
Because sometimes, even when I have parallel inspectors with me, meaning junior inspectors shadowing me, they'll ask questions and I'm like, oh, yeah, you're right. Or it makes me think and say, okay, I've forgotten because I don't see that very often, but yeah, you're right. Or the other thing is, there's a lot in my brain, but you should see all the books I've got at the house.
So that's a good segue. Give me your top 2 books or 2 books that changed your life. So actually, I got a 2-part question. Two books that changed your life, and then maybe a book that you always go back to.
You need to qualify that now. Books that have changed my life and books that I always go back to would be code books and ICC stuff, International Code Council stuff. I am actually an ICC certified inspector, which isn't listed in my bio because as a home inspector, it's the information behind the scenes that I'm inspecting with. I do, shouldn't say that. I said it, with new construction sometimes, with the builders, the ICC credential is important to be able to walk onto their job site and have credibility.
Okay.
So I do have the ICC ratings to essentially be able to go work for a city in a heartbeat. But that information and knowing how to use that information helps drive some of that detail that I put into those reports because it gives the basis of the information. So professionally, it's going to be that. I'm horrible with book titles, but every once in a while, my wife will throw a book and say, here, you need to read this. And I've got one sitting in my backpack, but I honestly don't even remember what the title is right now. Because a lot of what I do in my spare time is looking at other things, I'll say, within my profession.
Gotcha. Would you ever write a book? Or let somebody interview you and write it for you?
You know, it's interesting you bring that up because sometimes I illustrate topics or concerns in houses with stories. And those stories are essentially fact based from somewhere else in my experience to help bring some relevance. I use my house quite a few times, especially on older homes. Hey, this is how it means. This is what it means. And hey, I live with the same thing. So I've had some people say you should write a book. Have I ever gotten to that point? You know, I always viewed myself as being weak on English.
Oh, that's not true at all.
I know how to write. English is not my forte.
I got you.
As far as writing goes. Can I do it? Yes, I can do it. I just have never thought about doing it, probably.
Okay, cool. All right, so we're gonna do, as we come to a close, here's some quick fire questions I'm gonna throw at you. Regular wood or pressure treated wood?
Depends where you're at in the house construction. If it's going to contact anything that's damp, wet, concrete, earth, it needs to be pressure treated.
Okay.
If it's going to be buried, it's a different type of pressure treated. Above ground, up in your attic and roof, it's probably going to be spruce.
Okay. Butcher's block or granite countertops?
Both have pros and cons. The butcher block is probably more highly repairable. Both are going to stain. Both need care and maintenance to keep them pretty looking.
Hardwood floors or luxury vinyl plank?
Oh, I love hardwood floors. I live in a 100-year-old home. True hardwood floors.
So actually, so now you get me on another sidebar. So how do you keep when they start to separate on their own? It is a wood filler. Is it you replace the plank? What do you think?
Sometimes I joke and call them character marks of your home. Other times it's, especially when you're for St. Louis, we're a moist area generally with higher humidities.
Mm.
Sometimes if we go through extended periods, that hardwood will shrink because it's not as moist.
Yeah.
The older stuff, I actually have one of those joints in my house.
Mm.
Yes, there are ways you can actually cut that out if you have matching wood
Mm.
and splice in a new piece that would then fit much tighter.
Okay. Let me see. We get edited in. John, you got any quick fire questions?
Um, with an unlimited budget, could you buy a home built 100 years ago and honor the construction that those guys did, or do you buy one of the newer homes that were built in the last 10 years?
So hold on, I'm gonna say it again. Say it one more time. I'm gonna try to say it.
So I think what you're asking, John, is
So
if
new,
I
new
had
build or
an
vintage home with an unlimited budget.
if I had an unlimited budget, what house of generation build would I purchase?
Yeah.
Knowing that house needed to have major rehab or just as a fixed house?
You can rehab it, but you get the craftsmanship, you get the brick, you get all of that from the early 1900s that you're gonna have to pay for. Like you're not gonna be ready to get brick nowadays.
I like brick houses.
Okay.
I live in a brick house. I live in a 100-year-old stone foundation house. The reason why I like it is it stands up to wind a little bit better. It stands up to hail much better. But more importantly, when you start looking at things with some of the newer building materials, the older homes are far more repairable material-wise than the new homes.
Mm.
I can repair old houses. I can replace parts of old houses. On some of the new building materials, you must replace the entire material.
Mm.
So there's a big difference on how you can repair things and how you can expand things or alter things in those houses. The right way, the skill, an older 100-year-old home is far more repairable, and to some degree, you can make more alterations than you would be able to do on a new house. A new house is going to be potentially significant replacement or rebuilding of that building.
Mm. So let me see. Next question, or I guess final question will be, what's your favorite type of material to what's your in your opinion, what's a material that over the years you come into contact with, you're just like, this is great. And I ask this because I've seen reports where you're like, oh, this is cherry, oh, this is birchwood, and I'm just like, that's impressive that he knows what type based on the rings. Like, you could probably tell me what type of door that is. He's like, oh yeah, that's birch pine, So like, what's your favorite type of material or type of wood, I guess, because most houses have wood in them. What's your favorite type of material? Just you like the natural beauty of it.
When you go back into, I'll say, the historic homes, 100 years plus, it's going to have the true old growth oak and cherry. Mm-hmm. And when you get up on the second and third, you might get some really, really beautiful pine. Mm-hmm. Every once in a while, you get maple inlay. So like in Tower Grove East, there's a lot of inlaid on the first floor, and it's maple and red oak. Mm-hmm. If they're cared for, those things will last for years to come. And I mean, by years, another 50 to 100 years potentially. Mm. I cannot tell you that about new construction. So I love that old woodwork. I love how it was handcrafted. Probably the biggest factor that I've ever had is I have actually inspected an 1840s log cabin here in this region, where it was actually still the spruce. You could tell it was spruce, the spruce logs. Mm-hmm. And in some cases they had stripped the bark, in other cases they hadn't. Probably the coolest house I've been in the last 10 years was the house up in Valley Forge that I was in about a month ago. Mm-hmm. That had Hamilton and George Washington and all those guys there as they camped out in the Valley Forge for those 6 months. Mm-hmm. That house has been preserved and partially restored. It was really cool being able to stand on the stairway and hold the railing that they all used, and you could tell it was a hand-carved railing. So it was not something that they recreated. So it was just, that building just oozed history. So I love that old construction.
Awesome. So, piece of advice for any homeowners out there or any investors out there. It could be life advice. It could be home building advice, home buying advice. What would you want to tell our listeners? We got a vast audience, over 100,000 people listening right now.
Oh, if I jumped into a slightly different hat and say a good building inspector is also part of consumer protection. So advice would be, if you're buying property and you don't have years of experience and education on your own to know what you're looking at, find somebody who does, because they can save you a lot, or at least inform you of a lot of information that you may miss otherwise, that you may say, oh, I wish I would not have bought this house, or, hey, I'm glad he knew it because I could adjust my numbers and renovation to adjust for those things that I saw. So consumer protection, get a building inspection, preferably by somebody who has years of experience behind it. More importantly, it's got to be somebody you're comfortable with.
All right. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Keys to Your First Rental with our special guest, John Wessling of Wessling Inspections. You can Google him. You can check out his reviews. And if you have gotten an inspection by John Wessling, if you're one of our clients that are tuning in right now from all over the country, whether it's Georgia or Maryland or California, make sure you leave a comment here, and make sure that you leave a comment on his website telling him how much you appreciate his 36-page inspections that are detailed and color-coded that we send to you guys as you invest long distance. This has been Keys to Your First Rental. I'm your host, Brandon Alexander Williams, and this is John Wessling.
Thank you all.
All right.
Thank you for joining us here on this episode of Keys to Your First Rental. We hope you found these authentic stories from everyday people valuable and inspiring. If you know you're ready to get the keys to your first rental, we want to meet you. Head to www.workwithbay.com. Complete the quick intake form, and our team will review your details and set you up with next steps. That's it for now. Remember, the keys to your first rental are much closer than you think.